morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Indian Weekender on Sunday, the first show for 2022. My name is Sunil Kaushal and I'm your host. I hope you've had a good break, summer break or winter break, wherever you are. If you're in New Zealand, we've had a splendid summer. I think no one would complain. And also, I think we had the freedom or sort of freedom to go across borders within New Zealand, go to the beaches, have some family fun time, and try and forget 2020 and 2021. It's been a good start to the year. 1 month has already gone. Can you believe it? It's February now, and today being the Waitangi Day, which is the formation of the signing of the treaty between the Maori tribes and the British Commonwealth government to form New Zealand. It's been a great day today. What we are going to discuss is a few things, but firstly, what we have seen is the oncoming wave of Omicron globally, and it certainly has upset few pundits who thought 2022 would be a great year. Some have even called it the sequel of coronavirus, 2020, 2021, and the third sequel being 2022. And I hope it doesn't come to pass like that. But I think, given 2 years, we've begun to live with it. In New Zealand, we've had over 90% of population double vaccinated. We are seeing a booster also being implemented. And if you haven't had the booster, I would encourage you to go get yourself a booster. Now it's come down to 3 months after your second dose. So go get protected. It'll be great to have yourself and your family being protected. But what we are going to kick off this year in the first show is around the recent budget announcements by the Indian government. It's been a mixed bag. It was done probably under wraps that much than what it has been in the previous years, given the situation and the economic turmoil that we are in, especially in India. So this evening, I've got three well-known economists who are experts in their field to come and share light on the Indian budget. We have Professor Dr. Rahul Sen, who is from AUT and the senior lecturer in economics there. We also have Chirayu Bhatt, who is an economist at academia and also a YouTuber. And also we have Roma G, who is also a deputy principal of a high school over here. So I would like to welcome all of them onto the screen. And thank you so much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. I'll begin with you, Rahul. What's your sense of the Indian budget?
Thank you very much, Sunil, first of all, for having me on the show. So the budget, if we look at it, literally focuses a lot more on the long-term vision of how the Indian economy is likely to grow, and that's why you see the name Amrit Kal, mentioned in the budget, referring to the period running up from 75 years of independence up to 100 years. So obviously, it's a long-term roadmap that we can see here in the budget. And one of the biggest positives, of course, is the big push on the infrastructure, which, of course, will have a range of spillovers, not just only for Indian businesses within India, but also open a lot of opportunities for foreign businesses who wish to invest in that market. So that obviously is a very big positive. Also, I see the development, the announcement that we are going to have a digital currency issued by the RBI. I think that's also going to be awesome, but particularly for exporters and importers. And also the fact that we are in India, you are having such a huge focus now on strategic investments in fintech, in health tech, and in edutech, and you have opportunities coming up like in the Gujarat International FinTech City, where apparently Harvard University is interested in opening up a campus. So there's opportunities for education providers there as well. I see quite a bit of positives, but more from the point of view of the long-term growth of the Indian economy. But yes, there are a lot of short-term vulnerabilities, which I believe have not exactly been addressed, particularly on the consumer demand side. And, I would therefore probably start by saying I would give this budget maybe a 7 out of 10.
Okay. Chirayu, Rahul just mentioned about the kind of the cryptocurrency or the digital
Hmm.
thing. Do you think India is revolutionizing the crypto kind of environment for the world? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Definitely a good thing, Sunilji. But let me come to the holistic picture. If I were to ask how many marks I would give to this budget, I would give 6 marks out of 10 to this budget. According to me, this is not an extraordinary budget. It's not a bad budget either. It's a good budget. Why it's a good budget, I will refer to those points later on. But why it's not an extraordinary budget? See, there have been budgets in the past. They have been extraordinary budget that was delivered by Dr. Manmohan Singh in 1991. That was an extraordinary budget. Why? Because many economists, majority of the economists of India and world, they unanimously believe that it was the budget of 1991 that skyrocketed the Indian economy. We were literally on the verge of bankruptcy, but because of that particular budget, Indian economy, the GDP of Indian economy skyrocketed. Secondly, even if you take into consideration the budget of 1997, which was delivered by Chidambaramji, that was again a watershed budget. Why? Because it had a vision. He slashed corporate taxes, and that was he launched a scheme called VDIS, where you can disclose your disproportionate income, and the government, the government was trying to encourage not to hide your income from the sources and authorities. So I don't see any vision in this budget. Yes, there are some good points. I will refer to those points, but we need to um, understand, Sunilji, that finance ministers and budgets, they get acknowledged for vision. Schemes like VDIS or Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana or Swarnim Chaturbhuj Yojana, or even VP Singh gets acknowledged because the people believe that it was VP Singh who kind of slowly and gradually started the liberalization process. Obviously, Dr. Manmohan Singh gave it a big boost in 1991, but it was VP Singh who gradually started the process. So whenever you have that vision in your budget, you get acknowledged. And unfortunately, I don't see any vision in Nirmala Sitharaman's budget. So I will give 6 marks. There are some good points. I will come back to those points later on.
Roma, I mean, the world situation and the Indian situation, well, not in Indian, globally, right? We are in the recovery stage, right? Chirayu gives the budget 6, right? It's not about the points, but do you think it's a cautious budget, given that the state we are in globally and in India, you know, as you know, you are all are economists, right? You go to bank risk analysis, right? They'll be more conservative rather than on the higher end of the thing. So, do you think the Indian budget has been a good budget given the circumstances that we are in?
I think just looking at the budget holistically, I do agree with Rahul and Chirayu in that sense. That it's not an amazing budget, but there's some good things in it. The one good thing that I particularly liked was the focus on sustainability and environment, which I think is a step forward. Course, there's heaps money being spent on solar energy, on electrical vehicles, again, but it goes back to the long run sustainability of the economy. So if you're looking at infrastructure, you're looking at all these sustainable practices, it is going to help us down the line in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But when it comes to short term, like what's happening at the moment, I think the budget has fallen short. Like there are hardly any tax breaks for people. The economy has been suffering because of coronavirus. And it would have been quite good for people to get those tax breaks. So that hasn't happened. So it's more a long-term budget, to be very honest, rather than looking at what's happening at the moment. The same thing is with healthcare. Like we're in the mid of coronavirus pandemic, but I don't think there's a huge lot of thought given to that. In terms of spending. So I can come back to that later on as well. But I think, yeah, it's a good long-term budget looking at broader picture, but there could have been things which could have been paid more attention at this stage.
But do you think, given there are elections in two stages, they don't want to rock the boat?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's definitely it is, because of elections, that becomes a prime motive for the government, and we can see this through this budget. It's
Chirayu, do
quite.
you think they should have waited a little bit more to get the
Um,
budget? Because there was not much noise about the budget.
देखिए सुनील जी, असल में मसला क्या है, नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने बहुत अच्छे काम किए हैं पिछले 7-8 सालों में, बट द कोर प्रॉब्लम रिमेन्स के उन्होंने खुद भी एक्नॉलेज किया है कि ही डजंट अंडरस्टैंड इकोनॉमिक्स। वो एक आरबीआई की एक मीटिंग थे, उसमें गए थे, वहां पर वो बोल रहे थे, ही हिमसेल्फ एक्नॉलेज दैट इकोनॉमिक्स इज नॉट माय कप ऑफ टी। तो जब वो खुद ये कहते हैं कि इकोनॉमिक्स उन्हें ज्यादा समझ में नहीं आता, तो वो फिर इकोनॉमी और फाइनेंस को रन करने के लिए जो आदमी लेकर आते हैं, वो भी ऐसे होते हैं सर, जिन्हें ज्यादा इकोनॉमिक्स की इतनी समझ नहीं होती है। देखिए, पहले 5 साल तो हमारे जेटली साहब थे, ही हैज बीन एन एक्सीलेंट लॉयर, बट ही इज नॉट एन इकोनॉमिस्ट सर। निर्मला सीतारमण जी की इंटरनेशनल रेपुटेशन बहुत अच्छी है, लेकिन जब आप एक्सेप्शनल टाइम्स से गुजर रहे होते हैं, तो फिर आपको आदमी भी एक्सेप्शनल चाहिए। पीपल लाइक
the thing is that they are politicians, right?
Yes.
In politics, you have people from different backgrounds.
Yes.
Some are lawyers, some are accountants, some are doctors. Some are just businessmen. So to say that these politicians who are leading, I think what we want to get out of that is that was the budget a right one in given the conditions that we are in. Rahul, do you think the cryptocurrency or the digital currency that they are wanting to introduce, like you said around your introduction, that help the exporters and importers? So is that a world-leading initiative that the government is looking at doing?
I mean, I would believe so. I haven't exactly heard of any other central bank thinking about announcing a digital currency parallel to their circulating currency. But of course, there are regulatory issues here to be resolved. So, when you have traders utilizing these currencies, there has to be, proper cybersecurity measures and other regulatory measures associated with cryptocurrency banking, and that's a new area. So I mean, as I said, it's all from a long-term perspective. I think if we look at the budget holistically, two key themes always come up. One is powering India to be a digital economy, and the other, of course, is Atmanirbhar Bharat and making sure that we are making our economy resilient and competitive enough to compete with the rest of the world as we come out from the pandemic. And this has been kind of the theme if you look around in this in this budget. So having said that, I again would think that this I think is a phenomenal step for a country to think about, and especially for a country like India. So there could be risks. We don't know what are the associated risks in trading with a digital currency as opposed to the usual currency. But I think one of the main reasons why they went for it is obviously they saw that investment in cryptocurrencies was picking up, and obviously they did the right thing by taxing bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies which are outside of the central bank purview, and they wanted to offer an alternative that if people are interested in trading digital currencies, then let's think about this. So it's creative thinking, and which I think is fantastic, because that's something which was completely missing from government policy making, I would say. The other and really big news which hasn't come up is that just prior to this budget, we had a new chief economic advisor, Dr. Anant Nageshwaran, taking over. And he really understands economics. I mean, I know him from my Singapore days, so, I have had a little bit of interaction with him. And he understands economics very well. And I think he is one of the really good economists that the government has taken on board this time to steer India out of this pandemic-led situation. But yes, I mean, even from my friends in India, the moment the budget was introduced, I got to hear, oh, this is so disappointing. We are not getting any tax breaks and stuff like that, which is expected. And that's why I said in the short term, there were some other expectations which didn't come through. But again, if you think about it from an economist's point of view, if you want to spend heavily in infrastructure, you want to increase your, government spending, and at the same time elections are coming, so you do not want to increase your taxes to affect your vote bank, then I think the focus at the moment that they have taken, and I think what they view also, is that this long term push is going to create jobs, is going to create economic opportunities, and in return will spur consumer demand rather than by cutting taxes. So I understand that's a sort of story in their mind. And from whatever I have read in the budget, I would believe that once the economy is resilient enough to come out of the pandemic and actually hit that growth rate of 8% or so that we're expecting, I think we could see substantial tax cuts maybe in the future budget. But
Sure.
again, yeah, next year there's no impending elections hopefully coming up at that time. So
Roma,
yeah.
you're in education and academia, and a lot of focus has been on digitalization. Where do you think in the coming years this digital education system will take the Indians who are used to the maths book and the copy and the pencil and the slate? Do you think India will be producing world leading kids with in the education industry through digitalization, or is it just a waste of time and just a tick box?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting when we put it in educational perspective. Traditionally, we have thought that having that pen and pencil, maths textbook, that kind of learning always worked. So teachers were quite reluctant to actually try new technologies because it was seen as a distraction. It was all over the world. It was same in New Zealand, same in India and other countries. And once we were hit by COVID, we were forced to adapt it. It was just forced adaptation because we didn't have any other option. And I think the teachers overall, because I'm in connection with lots of people outside the country as well, now they have started to like it. They can see the positives. I think at the moment, like even with no pandemic or no lockdowns, even locally, we like to use a blended approach to learning. For India, I think it's even more important because, and India is the hub for technology. We get new technologies coming out of India, and I think Indians overall, I think, are quite adaptable as well. And with having technology moving forward, I do believe that we will see that revolution in education because of technology. But again, there has to be a good balance. You can't leave it to technology because not everybody knows how to make the best use of technology. There's less control.
Sure.
But
Talking about the digitalization and all, I mean, one common thing, I think you, just like me, you guys would have, ratta is the Hindi word, but
rote learning.
Rote
memorized,
learning.
Learning by
Yeah.
heart, learning by heart.
Rote learning.
remembered hard or remembered by heart, as they say in India, sine
Yep.
theta, cos theta, log tables. I mean, how
Yeah.
many of you, tell me honestly, have used it?
Just before the exams, maybe, Sunil?
Exactly, right before the exams, square root of 3 and, the pi and all. So, I mean, I think the digitalization of the Indian education system will probably, and hopefully will give the Indian, kids something new and bring them power, or even, bring them above the global standards. I want to come to privatization, Rahul. There's a little bit of, people do see gains and are more supportive of privatization. And, Chirai, you talked of, of the 1990s budgets and all. And you mentioned about infrastructure, roading, etc., which is very good. I mean, since my childhood, I've always heard about infrastructure, roading, and this and that. But do you think going privatization or a PPP model in some of the, in the budgets they have talked about it. Do you think it'll really enhance India? I mean, some of the highways are great, but what's your take on that privatization?
I mean, I would think that the best way to achieve a good world-class infrastructure is where you should involve, public-private partnership, and we already have examples of that in India. For example, the New Delhi airport. I mean, if you remember the airport that we had in the 90s compared to what we finally got after the Commonwealth Games with GVR partnering, I mean, we can see the clear difference. So I think it's pretty obvious that public-private partnership would definitely enhance the quality of infrastructure investment that we have in the country, and we need it. And the focus, particularly this time, as you know, has been also on the Northeast states, which is part of activating India's Act East policy, and it's really important that we have those connectivities with our neighboring countries. So it's really good to uh, emphasize as much on connectivity through these infrastructure opportunities we got. And in terms of thinking about what effect it might have on trade, I see this having big spillovers for trade facilitation, because this is going to, reduce your delays in sending your stuff to ports and through to airports and stuff like that. Probably it will streamline the process of your logistics of a lot of stuff moving from state to state. So I think in the long run, this will improve ease of doing business. This will improve trade facilitation. So in all those aspects, I think it's a plus, and we can already see, Tata's taking control back of Air India, and that I think is a very
That's a
positive
very good move. Very
for
good move.
the airline industry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask all of you about a very topical situation, and we heard, through the years, well, last year also, and there is some sort of I don't know, a giveaway or bending, but in the farm thing, in the budget that it talks about, do you think again, Roma, starting with you, do you think it was a sweetener given there are elections in Punjab? Or is it that
Being,
if you
being,
were a farmer, would
being a
you be happy?
Being a Punjabi, I'm very biased here, to be very honest. I think that was a big move. What happened right before elections, with the government backtracking on all their policies. I think when you're thinking about farmers, when you're thinking about the basic necessities and all that, you see the farmers in India are. I don't, again, I want to say my bias here, but they're not really as well supported as they are in lots of other countries. And on top of that, to bring in those policies which will harm them even more, that was quite uncalled for. But backtracking it right before elections, I think that might work for the government actually in some areas. Might because people are kind of easing now. If I talk to people like in Punjab or in Haryana, you see they have their they have something to say.
Do you think, Chirayu, do you think the farming budget or the scope for farmers in the budget, has been well?
Well, according to me, Sunilji, farm laws, whatever the government was proposing, were good. They were for the benefit of farmers. But Narendra Modi gave up to the pressure that his government was about to face Vidhan Sabha election in 3-4 states. So he couldn't tolerate that pressure, and he had to give in. That's a give up. He had to give up. That's a different story. But let me come back to the positive things of the budget, because I have spoken so much negative about the budget, so I don't want to.
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you on the positive towards the close. Yes. But Rahul, do you think the helping the farmers, because 70% of India is agriculture, right? I would have thought that there would be more in the budget to help the farmers, because they are the ones who have really, really, really suffered. Because looking at you have to balance the budget, right? There's no point about it. There's no discussions or arguments about it. You have to balance the budget. But when you look at 70% of your population, which is agricultural, 70% of the population which has been hit really hard during COVID, right? To a naked eye, you would think, okay, if there was some sweetness given, you would say, okay, that's fine because these are farmers, they supply X, Y, Z. But to a naked eye, it doesn't jump out. What's your take on
I mean, I do not really research much on the agricultural sector, but yes, I've been, of course, following a bit of that controversy, and my take would be pretty similar to what others have said. I mean, we have political compulsions here, so clearly that was the reason why the backtracking we saw of some of those farm laws, and clearly, if you look at the economics of it, there were quite positives out there, but obviously politics kind of took over the economics. But what I would think is, there should be a little bit more, deep look in terms of, the differences across states with respect to, the impact that these farm laws could have had, and, whether we could actually have achieved a better agricultural productivity in other states if they had implemented the law compared to, say, Punjab or others, where, of course, there's also issue around some specific crops, as compared to, a range of other crops that the farm laws sort of focus on. So I think, in the shorter to medium term, maybe farmers might realize, the economic value of, change of some of these legislations. I mean, e-Kisan, for example, is a great scheme. I don't know how many farmers in India have signed up to it, but that's a wonderful opportunity for farmers to, bypass all the middlemen and straight away try to sell their product onto the international market. So there's a lot of these opportunities which are opening up, but I think the discussion is shrouded a lot more in the political issues rather than actually trying to have a hard look at these economic
That's
benefits.
right. Look, I know we are running short of time, but I'll start with Chirayu to wrap it up. And maybe just in 60 seconds, if starting with Chirayu, if you can, all of you can give me the positives, of the budget. And then we can wrap it up. Chirayu, starting with you.
A digital university will be established with world-class quality education. Excellent move. PM Awas Yojana, 80 lakh houses to be completed in 2022-2023. Excellent move again. Har Ghar Nal Se Jal, 3.8 crore households to be covered in 2022-2023. Again, excellent move. What is missing here, Sunilji, is a out-of-the-box solution. When India did its nuclear blast in 1998, we were we were kind of, everybody was kind of lambasting India for doing the nuclear test. At that time, Yashwant Sinha, the then finance minister, comes up with a unique idea. It's called India Resurgent Bond. He appeals to NRI people, Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Yashwant Sinha, that your country is going through trouble at the moment. Please invest your money in the India Resurgent Bond. And look what happened. India Resurgent Bond received tremendous success from NRI people. So what is missing in this budget is out of the box thinking and vision. Yes, there are some good points which I highlighted, but yes, I would have been very happy had there been a long-term vision or out of box thinking. Thank you.
Thanks. So basically, you're saying it's a conservative budget. Rahul, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I would also say that it is a conservative budget, but I think it's an ambitious budget in that sense. If you look at some of the long-term plans that have been laid out, and of course, it seems that there's an assumption that the ruling party will be there for the next 2 decades or so, and therefore that Amrit Kal plan being rolled out. But I definitely see particularly the focus on these. Long-term push to infrastructure, attempting to improve the digital economy, its productivity. So these are going to be, I think, big positives in terms of attracting foreign investment. And I think going forward, when India is thinking about negotiating new trade agreements with, say, United Kingdom, and also I think recently Israel is interested to do one. I think these kind of uh, initiatives taken in the budget will be taken as a positive step. They will perceive it as India being serious in terms of improving its infrastructure, in terms of changing some of those labor laws, in terms of making business connections a lot more easier. And we can already see some of that happening. I mean, recently we have an announcement that India is going to invest into a mega semiconductor fab facility. That's a huge thing for India, because for so many years India was completely out of this upstream end of electronics supply chain, and now it's going to fill that gap when we have supply chain disruptions, when people desperately need those chips to get into your day-to-day life products, which are getting in great shortage thanks to the pandemic. So I think there is some good. I would probably think there is some long-term thinking in there. Yes, but clearly, a budget can't satisfy everyone. So I guess it's always a different view from people. But as I said, I would give it a 7 out of 10. So
Okay, thanks.
yeah.
And last but not the least, Roma, what's your take?
As we say in economics, always it all depends. So this is what we teach our students all the time. Is it good? Is it not good? It all depends on how you look at it. So I think that's quite valid here. The positives, I think, are, as Chirayu and Rahul have already summarized. So the infrastructure thing is really good. There is more spending on roads. There's more train networks. Then there's spending on hydropower, on solar energy. So if you look at sustainability, environment for India, the pollution levels and all that. So that's going to help. It's going to bring more jobs in. It might attract more foreign investment as well. So more jobs, low unemployment. So the basic economics concepts, I guess. But on the other side, like as I have mentioned before, I think it's quite disappointing to see health not being given a prime importance in this one, because only about 3% of India's GDP is still being spent only on health, whereas other countries, say, for example, New Zealand, Australia does 9%, Japan does 12%. But the worst thing is most of our equipment is imported. So at the moment, India is only making about 20% of medical equipment in the country. So it could have been good to look at self-reliancy and then looking at, we can produce all that. So that money could have been spent there as well, just to be prepared for the future. So that's one thing that I thought they could have spent a little bit, more money on and given it more thought.
Yeah.
Sure. But thank you so much, Roma Kaur, Chirayu Bhatt, and Rahul Sen, for your time today at our first discussion for the year, talking about the Indian budget. And as the three of you agree, and also I think globally, the Indian economist or the diaspora, everyone agrees it's been a conservative budget, given the state that we are in at the moment. So it's better to be err on the cautious side than to be, a risk taker. But hopefully, we will see some things positives come out of it. Also, we'll see in May when New Zealand announces its budget how the country looks at it. It'll be very interesting to see how we in New Zealand look at our budget. But thank you so much for your time on the Sunday afternoon, a long weekend. I wish you all the best for the rest of the coming week. And to our audiences, thank you very much for joining us for the first show. We look forward to hosting you again next weekend on Sunday, the 13th of February, for another hearty discussions with our guest at the day. Thank you so much. You have a lovely day. Goodbye.